We will speak about money laundering as a concept in this video. And I'm sure by end of this video, your understanding on money laundering will be at a different level altogether. So do subscribe my channel, and also if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. This will motivate me to create more videos on email and KYC concept. So let's move on to the concept of money laundering. So we have been talking about money laundering, and I know that this is not a new concept. Uh, in a very simple language, it's a process of making dirty money clean or converting black money into white. So everybody who understand money laundering, or anybody who have heard about money laundering, they will use this definition, right? Let's understand how money laundering is being done. Money laundering has been described as the process by which proceeds of crime are put through a series of transactions which disguise the illicit origin and make them appear to have come from legitimate source. And I would say money laundering is very interesting concept, where I have earned money from illegal source. I would try to bring that money into the system, and then I'll try to make multiple transaction where I'll be moving money from my one bank account to another bank account. I'll be moving money from one country to another. I may set up a company uh, in a tech 7 country or offshore jurisdiction, and then I can transfer money from a bank account of offshore entity to my bank account, or to my relative bank account, or my close associate bank account, and ultimately hiding the origin of those funds, or making the whole process look very complex and make it very difficult for a law enforcement agency or a regulator or a bank to perform an investigation. I'll make sure that all these transactions look very genuine, which is a normal part of business, and ultimately I make them appear that they have come from legitimate source. So now understand, as we said, that money laundering is not a new concept. Uh, I think this concept has come in the year 1930, where money laundering was primarily associated with crime like drug trafficking, or human trafficking, or armed trafficking, right? But over the period of time, the trend has changed. The method of money laundering has changed over a period of time. I think a couple of years back, we also heard about Panama Papers, where we heard a lot of people have opened offshore entity to use those entity to launder money. And currently, we can see a trend where a lot of people are investing in virtual money. And I can understand that virtual money comes with features of anonymity and removing the audit trail. Although we will capture virtual currency and a risk related to virtual currency in a separate session. But the point I'm trying to make here is the trend has changed. Uh, even in money laundering, with new technology, new tools, new methods being used by money launderer or bad actor. So with this definition on this slide, let's understand what are the key attribute of money laundering. The first key attribute of money laundering would be funds are from a criminal origin or a predicate crimes. So predicate crimes are nothing but a crime which would lead to a bigger crime like money laundering and terrorist financing. So, for example, predicate crime can be drug trafficking, human trafficking, tax evasion, insider trading. So that will lead to generation of lot of money, lot of cash, lot of illegal cash. So that would ultimately lead to either to money laundering or terrorist financing kind of crimes. The other uh, key attribute of money laundering here, the aim of a money launderer is to hide the origin of fund and make the fund appear legitimate. Because in this case, what is being done is, let's take an example. I'm a drug trafficker, and majorly I'm selling drugs in return of cash, and it's a cash intensive business for a drug trafficker where a lot of cash is being generated. So as a drug trafficker, I need to distance myself with this cash. So I use a different method of money laundering. I may deposit money in the bank account, which can be in small denomination, which can avoid any further investigation, right? And then I can transfer that money to different bank accounts, to the bank account of my relative, to bank account of my friends, and I can also transfer this money to other geographies. To make things more complex, create a web of transactions, and ultimately consolidated consolidate the whole amount, and make the fund appear legitimate. Although we need to understand the audit trail is can't be removed, but what we are trying is we are just hiding the origin of fund. And next, the most important attribute of money laundering is the circular flow of fund. Uh, what what's happening in money laundering is, uh, they end up back in the hands of criminal after the completion of the laundering process. So it's a circular flow where I deposit money into the financial system. Then I'll transfer the money. I'll make multiple transactions, and at the end I consolidate the whole money, and that money come back to me. So that's the entire circular flow of fund in money laundering. So now let's get into more detail and what other things can be considered as money laundering, or which come under ambit of money laundering. The conversion or transfer of property, knowing it is derived from criminal offense for the purpose of concealing or disguising its illicit origin, or assisting any person who is involved in the commission of the crime to evade the legal consequence of his action. Concealment or disguising of the true nature, source, location, disposition, movement, rights, with respect to or ownership of property, knowing that it is derived from criminal offense, the acquisition, possession, or use of property, knowing at the time of its receipt that it is derived from criminal offense or from participation in a crime. So if we look at all the three bullets, it focusing on the knowledge of parties who are involved in whole process of money laundering. So in case of money laundering, there would be a different parties which are involved in the whole process. So there can be a drug trafficker who is earning money from illegal source. All the money he is earning is can be considered as black money. Now he hire different people, so it can be lawyer, it can be solicitor. He can also reach out to companies who who can help him to register an offshore entity. So in the definition of money laundering, people who are knowingly helping in disguising the true nature of, of the fund or the ownership of property are also need to be considered in the past part of money laundering. We have understood what is money laundering. So now let also understand what can be different crimes or offenses through which illegal money can be generated. So one of the one of the offense which is typically synonymous or associated with money laundering is drug trafficking, human trafficking, tax evasion, financial frauds, corruption, bribes, illegal sale of wildlife product, and other specified predicate offenses. Now, in recent times, we have seen money laundering has grown into a real big business, and as per some study by United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, where the objective was to determine the magnitude of illicit fund generated by drug trafficking and organized crime. So it was estimated that criminal proceed amounting to 3.6% of global GDP is being laundered. And similarly, another estimate or a study by International Monetary Fund come up with the same estimation where they said 2 to 5% of global GDP is something where money is being laundered through drug trafficking and other organized crime. So now let's understand the different stages of money laundering through which uh, money come into financial system, and ultimately it reaches to money launderer. It integrate with money launderer, and he can use that money for its personal use and also to further commit any other crime. So the first stage in the money laundering is placement. As the name suggests, placement, the money is introduced, the money is placed into the financial system. So let also understand with few example how the money can be introduced into the system. So it can be buying high value goods, shipping money across borders to deposit in foreign financial institution, depositing permissible amount into a bank account. So In this stage, what happens is I introduce money into the legal financial system. So here we are not talking about moving funds from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction using illegitimate remittance system, right? So some of the example of illegal remittance system is hawala, black market peso exchange, where uh, where a money launderer give a commission to hawala agent, and the hawala agent then reaches out to another hawala agent in another country, and the money is given to the receiver of or a maybe known person of the money launderer. So here we are not talking about the transfer of money through illegal system. So here, as a money launderer, I am introducing money into the financial system. So financial system can be banks, can be credit card companies, insurance. It can be money service business like Western Union, MoneyGram, and then using other professions and business like casinos, uh, high value good seller like jewelry house, and then also a second hand car dealers. So all that come into the legal financial system, or a comprises of legal financial system. So here what I'll do is I will again take the same example where I'll open maybe 10 different bank account, and then I'll deposit $1,000 in all of my bank accounts. So since I'm depositing 1,000, no bank would question uh, that small amount, right? And not even the investigation agency that would come up and ask that question. So here, by depositing 1,000 in 10 different account, I'm depositing $10,000, right? Then I'll move this fund between my bank account, or I can transfer this money to my relative in another country. So let's say I have a relative in London, and I transfer maybe let's say $9,000 from different bank account to my brother in London, to his bank account. So with this bank account, with this money, my brother may go ahead and purchase purchase a insurance policy, right? And that's how the money is being introduced into the system, right? So once in this example, once the money is deposited in the bank account, in my bank accounts, so that is the placement stage where I have already introduced money into the financial system. So in the money laundering, the next stage is layering. This stage involves converting the proceed of crime into another form and creating complex layer of financial dealing to disguise the audit trail. So let's go back to the same example where I have deposited $1,000 in my 10 different bank account. Now what I'm doing is I'm moving this money to the bank account of my brother in London, right? So I have deposited somewhere around 9,000 or 9,500 in his London bank account, and using that bank account, that money, my brother has purchased an insurance policy, And so there is a and even in insurance policy they give you a grace period where if they say that if you don't like the term and policy within 30 or 60 days depending on company to company, you can surrender and get the refund. And even in some cases, uh, if you surrender the policy after 1 year, they will charge you a penalty of 5% and give you the refund in way of check, right? So this way, in this stage, what I have done is I have performed multiple transaction, and I also converted the proceed of crime into another form. So initially it was cash which was deposited into the bank account. Now, by the time it reaches to my brother in London, and he further changed it to insurance policy, and then he got that surrendered and got the check in his name, and which he deposited into his bank account. So, in the whole process, if you see, it would be difficult for a financial institution or an investigation agency to understand uh, that there is anything illegal which is happening in the whole process. So everything seems to be very genuine, where a brother in one country sends transfer money to his brother in another country. It can be for study purpose, it can be to meet personal expense, and nobody can question that. So that's the purpose of layering, where you are making multiple transaction and changing the form of the proceeds. So some of the example is reselling high value goods, transfers of deposit cash from one account to another, converting deposited cash into monetary instrument like traveler's check, right? So here, once my brother have received money into his bank account, so he may use uh, different layers. So out of 9,000, he may take an insurance policy of $5,000. He can purchase traveler checks of $2,000, and for the remaining $3,000, he can pay his credit card, which is over and above which he is supposed to pay. And for the additional amount which he paid to credit card, he can ask for the refund back to his bank account. So this way, like we have created the web of transaction and creating a complex layer of financial transactions just to disguise the audit trail. Now, in the last stage, which is called integration. So this stage entail placing laundered proceed back into the economy to create the perception of legitimacy. So integration is nothing but I am consolidating uh, the whole amount which I have deposited, which I have introduced into the system. Then I have created a multiple layers of transaction, right? And then ultimately, when I feel that there is a layer and I'm able to change the proceed into different form, and I'm able to make the whole transaction look very complex, and I feel, and I'm very comfortable that now nobody would able to understand that the money which is getting consolidated is not coming from illegal source, and I have confused the whole audit trail. So this is where I am consolidating the money, and now I can use this money for my personal use. So this is the last stage where money which was introduced by me coming back to me where I can use it for my personal use. And now, from my perspective, this money seems to be coming from a legitimate source, right? So here, with that consolidated money, I can buy high value good. I can invest into real estate. I can invest in a business venture. So I may go ahead and open a restaurant business, and in future I can commingle my illegal money with the legal money which is being generated by a restaurant business. So this is basically the three stages how money laundering is being performed. So it has been seen that as a money launderer, I may not require to go through all the three stages, right? Depending on how complex or how the kind of web of transaction I want to create, I may choose to use any of these stages, right? But in a normal scenario, we have seen that all the three stages come into picture where money is introduced. Lot of transactions are being done to hide the audit trail, and then money comes back to the money launderer, where this money seems to be coming from a legitimate source, and he can use it for its personal use. So now on this particular slide, I have tried to uh, give you a pictorial representation. So what happens is there's a person who is involved in illegal activity. So it can be drug trafficking, human trafficking, or kidnapping, or bribes. So the whole illegal activity would result in money being generated. Now, at the placement stage, I have deposited money into different bank accounts. It can be mine, it can be my family member, it can be in my friend's name, and I can also send this money to foreign location, and I can ask my relative living there to deposit that money into their bank account. So here the money is being introduced, right? And at the same time, I'm trying to make sure that I'm not being caught, and I'm not trying to create any suspicious transaction where bank or investigation agency would able to identify me, and will try to ask questions in terms of where that money is coming from. So here I'll try to be a little smart. I put that money into small denomination, and then I will put multiple transaction from there, from from the bank. Once I place the money into the bank account, I can pay my credit card payments, and I can overpay my credit card bills, and then I can ask for refunds from the credit card company. I can do the wire transfers to other bank account, to my brother account who is in London, and also I can purchase insurance policy and get that surrendered within the grace period. And so in the stage of layering, I have made a multiple transaction, and also I have tried to hide the audit trail. So if you look at the middle row, where in the layering stage, if I'm getting a refund from credit card company, if I'm receive a payment from from the insurance company, if I'm getting a wire transfer from other account. So here things seems to be very genuine, right? So investigation agency or the bank account or a bank or a bank people may not ask any further questions, right? So from this stage, what I try to do is I'll try to consolidate the whole amount, and then I can use this money for my personal use. It can be purchasing a property, it can be buying a high value goods, or probably I can use it to set up some business, or probably I can also go ahead and use this money for further criminal activity. So this is all about money laundering as a process. I hope I'm able to explain the process in detail, and it help you to understand and able to raise your understanding about money laundering. And if you have any questions, do let me know. You can put that into comment box, and I will get back to you. Thank you so much. You have a nice day. Take care.